Pregame.com.
Lions laying 3.5 at the Vikings. You heard me right. Lions are laying 3.5 at the Vikings. This is your play. Tell me who you like and why.
I almost made this my best bet. In fact, I love the NFL card this week. We had a lot of success last week, and this week's just as easy. I'm going to take the home dog here in Minnesota. Detroit's done nothing to want to go against them, but Detroit has lost 13 straight games to Minnesota. Minnesota knows Detroit better than anybody. They play in the same division. They play every year. The defensive tackle, Kevin Williams, is back from suspension for the Vikings. He's going to shut down any type of running game Detroit's got, which makes Detroit a one-dimensional team. And what really is important in this game is this is a do-or-die game for Minnesota. If they lose this game, they'll be 0-3 in the division, with Detroit being 3-0, with last year's division winner Chicago and the Super Bowl champion Green Bay Packers. This is the season for the Minnesota Vikings.
I agree with you. This is as big of a game as it's going to get for them. And what I like about Minnesota is how improved they were from week 1 to week 2. Even though the score was close in San Diego, they totally got dominated. But they played well last week, even though it didn't turn into a W for them. So for me, that's a plus going into this week. I think Detroit, and I hate to use the word this early on, but with everyone in love with this team, but I do think they're overrated, and I do think they're overvalued. When you get a team that's 2-0 straight up, 2-0 against the spread, and people cashed a ton of tickets on them, I think odds makers are going to inflate the price. It's inevitable. Books know they're going to get Detroit money this week, and I think the odds makers' job is to help protect the books if they're not able to split money. And they know they're going to get one-sided here unless the Sharps come in and bail them out with Minnesota. Ones I spoke to like the Minnesota side, but with public money outweighing wise guy money, it's not going to be enough to balance the books. The books will be one-sided on Detroit, I think, and they're going to be rooting for that Minnesota side. So they're going to want your side to come in. And I agree. You give me 3.5 points with the Vikings at home against a more or less untested team like Detroit, who just beat up on Kansas City and, ended up winning in Tampa in week 1, and I got to grab the points. They're +6 in turnovers. Everything's been going their way. Let's see how they react if there's a little adversity. And I think they're going to face it this week with Peterson and Minnesota.
Yeah, it's interesting. You don't find this very often this early in the season, but both teams have already played one of the same teams. They played Tampa Bay. What did Tampa Bay do in both games? Fell way behind in the first half and made big comebacks in the second half. Now, Detroit was able to hold on. Minnesota wasn't. So if Minnesota wins that game and holds off on Detroit, do you really think we're getting 3.5 in this game?
No.
This is a hell of a bargain. In my opinion, this is going to be a sharps against the squares. I hate to say the word squares,
right?
But the public is in love with Detroit.
Look at the Super Bowl odds. Have you ever seen Detroit there as low as 15-1 at some shops?
Yeah, the sharps are going to be on Minnesota in this game, and anything can happen. The game still has to be played, but I want no part of a team that the public is loving going as a road favorite, but more than 3 at this point, against a place
that key number.
They never win, and the other team is desperate.
And I think the betting public, seeing that they're in a dome, they're going to think, they're not at a huge disadvantage because that's the surface they play on. Where I found a problem was trying to find data that mattered, because if you look at the last time these two played, you had Joe Webb at quarterback for Minnesota and you had Sean Hill at quarterback for Detroit. So you have to throw that out the window, and that's the only difficulty I had, trying to find pertinent data matching the two teams up, looking at past history between them. So you kind of got to toss that to the side. Regardless, I think Minnesota's getting too many here. I got to agree with you. Minnesota getting 3.5 as a home dog. That's Brian's pick. I agree with him.